Soshimin How to Become Ordinary is once again another unique anime where the premise isn't really that groundbreaking, but it's how they use it that really sets your eyes on it and is able to capture your attention, which is not surprising because, for those who don't know, the author of this series is none other than Honobu Yonezawa. And if that name rings any bells, well, this is the same author that created Hyouka, and of course, if you have watched or read Hyouka, then you would know that Hyouka was able to put mystery and slice of life together and make such a very interesting story. Well, it seems that this is happening once again with this story, How to Become Ordinary, as once again it was able to tackle mystery and slice of life and mix it together to once again create a very unique story about two characters who just simply want to become normal, but due to circumstances they're always getting involved in mysteries that while they seem to not be interested, they then become interested and want to solve it. The two characters in question are none other than Jogoro Kobato and Yuki Osanai, two characters who have known each other for quite some time, decide to make an agreement that once they reach high school they should simply just live ordinary lives and live like ordinary people, already setting the stages that clearly something must have happened for them to agree to no longer have their usual lifestyle that they had before reaching high school. And it really makes you wonder what could have possibly happened for them to completely change their lifestyles just like that. But despite this being in the back of your head, there are also other things that are keeping you interested, and this is once again, like I mentioned earlier, the mysteries. Just like Hyouka, some of the most ordinary things can become mysteries, and while at first you may not care about them, as the mystery proceeds, you actually start to get curious as to how this is going to get solved. And oftentimes the series tries to give us clues to the viewers, whether it's camera shots to a specific thing or the dialogue that many of the characters are saying. This is important as this does sometimes contribute to the mystery being solved, and once you look back and see how it was solved, it all starts to make sense, and sometimes the answers were right in our faces that we didn't see just because of the many other things that were happening. Like when Kobato is trying to figure out the mystery of who was the one that ate one of the pastries from the plate, even though everybody in the room claims that they have not touched it whatsoever. Well, the mystery will be solved when he recalls that he saw Osanai earlier before he entered a room, so he concludes that Osanai must have gone to the room and saw the plates and decided to get one for herself, as it will be very obvious all throughout the series that Osanai has a sweet tooth for desserts. Or during the hot chocolate mystery, in which Kobato visits his other friend named Kengo, who is making hot chocolate for them, but once he goes to the kitchen, his friend's sister is trying to solve a mystery as to how Kengo was able to make chocolate in the first place, as not only was the sink dry, but there was no sight of a pot being used to make the hot chocolate. But later on, we will find out that one way he could have done it is by using the microwave, and when the fridge is open and they touch the carton of milk, it was still hot, meaning that Kengo put the whole carton of milk in the microwave and heat it up and just simply used that and the cocoa powder to make the hot chocolate. Once again, these mysteries are just everyday mundane things at first glance, but once you see the process of how the mystery was solved, you don't really mind seeing these mundane mysteries being solved. And it's not like Kobato is the only one who is able to solve these mysteries, as Osanai is able to solve them just like him as well. One example of this is when Kobato visits her house with treats on his hand, and once they're about to eat, Osanai gets a phone call leaving just Kobato in the room with the treat, but later on Kobato will eat one of Osanai's treats, but he will try to make it look like nothing was eaten or nothing was missing in the first place at all. However, things don't go exactly as he planned, as Osanai was able to tell that one of her treats was eaten, and this is because at some point Kobato had to use his handkerchief during the process, and that's the first thing that Osanai caught her attention, was that he used his handkerchief earlier on for wiping the sweat. However, when a drink spilled, he only used tissues to not only clean the spill but to also wipe his sweat, meaning that he must have used the handkerchief for something while she was gone. This mystery alone would show us that Osanai is a very intelligent individual, just like Kobato. But something else that we will find out very quickly is that while Osanai seems to be very calm and collected, she is somebody that holds grudges, and if you do something to her to disturb her peace, then she will have no problems getting revenge and making sure that person pays. One of the things that was greatly shown was even in the beginning of the series, where there was this big mystery in which Kobato and Osanai were buying strawberry tarts and they decided to stop by a convenience store to get a few extra things. However, these group of teenagers were also in the same place as them, and while Kobato didn't think too much of it, but later on, one of the people from this group would steal Osanai's bike, not only stealing her bike, but also destroying her strawberry tarts in the process. And while Osanai was nowhere near at fault for everything that happened in this situation, she actually got in trouble for not only getting her bike stolen, but it will be found at a different location, completely destroyed and just ditched like if it was nothing. This of course upsets Osanai and she wants to find the bike thief and make him pay, but Kobato doesn't really want to proceed with this mystery as he doesn't really want to get too involved, that this is something that he doesn't want to do anymore. This is a very interesting moment because it goes to show us that Kobato really is trying his best to just simply have a normal quiet life, but Osanai, because of what happened to her, is determined to have justice because it's not fair that she has to pay a price for someone else's wrongdoing. And while Kobato initially said he was going to step away from the mystery, he can't stop thinking about it and he will later on get Kengo's help. They start to theorize as to why Osanai's bike was stolen in the first place, and they come up with a few theories. Because of the location that the bike was found later on was a very odd place for someone with a bike to be in, since there was practically nothing, but once they see that there's actually a driving school nearby, they start to theorize that most likely the biker thief was planning on getting his license, and while later on they will find out that this biker thief's name is Sakagami, they will actually find out the true intentions of this whole ordeal. It will be revealed that Sakagami's intentions were that he was going to get a license under a false name, something that was told by the group that he was in to do, to get someone's name and use it as his own to get the license. But this plan will be foiled by Osanai, who decided to go to the driving school and take pictures of what he was doing. And while it may seem at first that nothing was going to happen, that's not actually true, as Kobato, when he was looking at his phone, he realized there's a news story of 5 high schoolers being arrested for trying to get licenses in fraudulent ways, meaning that Osanai, when she was taking the photos, had intentions of reporting this to the authorities and use that as evidence to make the arrest happen. And that's exactly what will happen, as Kobato will state later on when visiting her that it seems that Sakagami was being used by this group, but now he's not only have to deal with the judicial system, he and his group is now going to have that in the record. This whole situation alone gave us a different perspective of Osanai, and something that even Kobato said earlier on, that while Osanai may seem cool-headed and a gentle person, if you make her mad or you get in her bad side, she is going to unleash fury on you, and the last person he will want to be enemies with is none other than Osanai. But this wouldn't be the only time that we will see Osanai's true intentions or how far she was willing to go in order to make sure that nobody gets in her way and doesn't have to deal with them ever again. Kobato gets involved in a situation in which Kengo tells him that a girl from the school is being involved with some very not so great people who are apparently drug users and have been doing this since middle school, and that the girl's kid's sister has told him if he could find a way to make sure that she not only gets out of that group but to ensure her safety. And while at first Kobato doesn't really want to be involved in this very serious case, Kengo says some very weird things that made him be interested into what's going to happen. And unsurprisingly, he wouldn't be the only one involved in this case, as Osanai will also for some reason be involved in this case, but later on we'll actually find out why she really wasn't involved in this case. But before that gets revealed, something out of nowhere happens that even caught me by surprise, and that is that Kobato will find out that Osanai was actually kidnapped by this group of people, the same group of people that Kengo was investigating. As it turns out, it seems that Osanai and the leader of this group don't have a good history, as it will be revealed that she actually served time because of Osanai, most likely because of the use of drugs that she was doing. She of course would have to spend time, and of course the very first thing she did once she was free was of course get back at the person that made her be in that place to begin with. And at first it seems that Osanai was just a helpless victim in this situation, as most likely she couldn't have predicted this to happen. Sure, she wasn't surprised that the girl in question held a grudge on her because of what she did, but she probably wasn't expecting her to be kidnapped And who knows what would have happened to her if nothing was being done, as during this time Kengo and Kobata were determined to find out where is Osanai and try to rescue her, or at least find the location that she's at so the authorities can go in and take action. And of course, because this is Osanai we're talking about, she would obviously leave clues as to where she might be based on the previous conversations and many of the things that she said in secret, cryptic messages that Kobata was able to understand when this was all going down, thus leading to not only Osanai being saved, but of course the people involved to be arrested and most likely won't be able to see the light of day anytime soon. And while this may seem like a very unfortunate situation that Osanai was in, Kobato would actually reveal a bombshell relation, and when he confronts Osanai, he tells her that he is confident that Osanai knew that she was going to get kidnapped. She knew that this was going to be the situation that she was going to be in, and that this was something that she planned on doing for quite a while. And while Osanai tries to be oblivious and doesn't know what he is talking about, she would come clean and tell him that everything was according to her plan. She knew that the girl that she reported and got served time was going to hold a grudge against her and was going to want to have revenge and pay back for what she did, which was unsurprising, and she knew where she was coming from, but of course this was not something she was going to let it slide. But this wouldn't be the only twist in this whole ordeal. As it turns out, the girl that Kengo was trying to make sure that she wasn't involved in that group anymore, well, as it turns out that she was actually a spy, meaning that Osanai managed to convince this girl to be part of that group in order to get inside information about what was going to happen. Basically, Osanai was actually taking a huge risk, not just on her own, but also getting somebody else involved that clearly wanted nothing to do with these people whatsoever. So it's not surprising that as soon as everything happened, the girl in question that was a spy for Osanai very quickly decided to cut things off with Osanai and pretend that they were strangers, because this wasn't the only thing that she was told to do. Not only was she told to infiltrate, but she was also told to make scenarios to make 100% sure the people involved in the kidnapping have many years that they have to spend time in jail. And the way they did this was because earlier on, when the kidnapping was taking place, Osanai's mother got a call for ransom. Basically, they wanted money in order to ensure the safety of Osanai, something which was completely fabricated because it was just the spies doing, just in order for the other people to get more charges once they got arrested. And this, of course, was just simply something that was really just mind-boggling, as Osanai managed to plan all this despite knowing all the huge risks that she was taking, not just for herself but for the spy as well. There were many different scenarios that could have happened in this whole kidnapping that may have changed things completely different. And who knows, maybe just one change could have completely made Osanai's plan a complete failure. But in a way, I'm kind of glad this stuff happened because it completely differentiates this from Hyouka, because if you look at things more clearly, a lot of the characters are really unhinged. And there's no wonder why Kobato and Osanai were so determined to live normal lives, since even they themselves knew that they weren't normal people, and the things that they seemed to be interested in or they were capable of doing were things that some normal person may not think of even doing at all. But deep inside, they know that this is a part of them. They know that this is something they can't just ignore. So it's no wonder why so many times when Kengo was talking to Kobato, he could tell that Kobato was trying really hard to pretend that he wasn't interested in the many mystery cases, when that is indeed not true. And no matter how many times Kengo has tried to ask Kobato why he was so determined to have a normal life, Kobato never really gave a clear answer and always said that he just wanted to change because he wanted to. Although there were some moments that you can tell that Kengo was probably putting a test to see if this was true. Like looking back at the hot chocolate mystery, Kengo didn't really seem to mind that Osanai and Kobato were in the kitchen for far too long, meaning that he probably already knew that this was because both of them were trying to figure out how he made the hot chocolate to begin with, confirming to him that both of them wanting to have a normal life may not be entirely the case, as if they were trying to have a normal life, they would have probably brushed this mystery his side and just gone back to the room with him. But because they didn't, this just made him believe that everything that Kobato was saying, that him trying to become normal, wasn't entirely true. But it seems that despite all this, Kobato did have its limits, as after Osanai came clean about the plan, he told her straight up that she was a liar, as everything she did up to this point was not only dangerous, but it also put him and his friend's life in danger, something that Osanai does acknowledge, but she counters saying that Kobato was also not perfect, because in a way, this whole agreement of them becoming normal was never going to happen. There was clearly no intentions of the both of them that they were going to try and go to have a normal life or try to be normal people. And that's something that Kobato realizes, and they both come to the agreement that it's probably better off that they don't hang out anymore or see each other for some time, which is something that while Kobato did not really agree, that while yes, this whole thing was insane, it's probably for the better that most likely they don't see each other, as who knows what other situation they get themselves into if they are still together. Yes, what happened with Osanai and the kidnapping and what the girls did to her was not okay, but the fact that Osanai was willing to create false charges so that they could spend more time in jail is obviously something that is very questionable. And even though she does make the argument that she was scared and she didn't want to deal with whatever they were trying to do with her, there were probably better solutions out there that could have solved this whole situation. This could have probably prevented her from not only risking her life, but using the people around her for this plan to even work. So basically, the core message towards the end of the series is that normal is very vague. A lot of people have different interpretations of being normal, and sometimes it's completely fine if there's something about you that makes you unique and isn't something that a lot of people can do, but some things are out of line, and Osanai showed us in these final moments that she clearly is somebody that is willing to do anything to solve a problem she has. So it was most likely better off that these two don't interact anymore, as unironically Osanai said it best, that right now that both of them are just a bunch of arrogant high schoolers who really need to start looking at the mirror more closely and realize who they truly are and face the reality. And that's how the story ends so far, with the two main characters going in their separate ways. And at the time of recording this, season 2 has already been announced, so this is not the end of this series, and we're most likely going to see a continuation of how these two are going to end up and what's going to happen now that they're both going in their separate journeys. And overall, I am really looking forward as to what's to happen next, as it's basically something that really has caught my interest a lot. I mean, not surprising considering it's the same person that made Hyouka, and that series has always captivated me ever since I watched it. But with everything that I've seen of stuff right now, it's very clear that it's taking a different direction than what we saw in Hyouka. Sure, some of the things are very similar, like the mysteries and stuff like that, but it's very obvious that it's trying to be its own thing. And I can appreciate that because it shows that two stories can be very similar, but also very different at the same time. And I'm really looking forward to see what happens in season 2, because during the final moments of the last episode, it seems that Osanai has managed to find somebody else to replace Kobato, and only time will tell what will happen between these two. And yeah, that's pretty much the entire video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time.